Full Bloom is brought to you in part by the following. Welcome to Full Bloom, the award-winning show that celebrates life. Here's your host, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Full Bloom. I'm Zita Christian. My guest tonight is here to talk about turning yards into gardens. And if her friendly face looks familiar, it's because she is a television producer and a former reporter on WFSB Channel 3. And I am delighted to have her here on Full Bloom. Deborah Kent, welcome to the show.
It's great to meet you.
Thank you. So we have so much to talk about tonight because you have started a whole new career in landscaping design. And I know one of the things that I noticed on your website that got me to thinking, you had a little quote there that said, the outside of your home should be as welcoming as the inside. And I started thinking, well, what constitutes welcoming from the outside?
Well, number one, do they know where to go? A guest comes to your house. Do they even know which door to go to?
Oh my gosh,
Are your
I never thought of
paths
that.
well outlined? At night, do you have lighting? I mean, so many people have back and front doors. How do they know how to enter your home? And then when they do figure out the path, how does it look? Is it clean, well kept? Is there color? Is there some kind of shape that guides them? And some kind of welcome at the front door?
You know, when I saw that on your website, I went outside and I walked outside. I thought, okay, pretend I'm coming.
Yeah.
And I looked and I thought, okay, the door is red. I like a red door.
Yep.
And I have lots of geraniums in pots on the porch, and I thought I like that looked good. I have a little sign that a friend painted on stone that has, our name and has a couple of little birds and stuff.
Sure.
And I thought that looked good. And then I saw I hadn't swept it in a couple of days. I saw the plants needed deadheading. Then all of a sudden I saw everything that was wrong. But I imagine that's part of what you do. You develop an eye to look for those details.
Sure. So many of us become immune to our own properties. We don't notice the huge overgrown plant. We don't notice that it's half dead on this side.
Yes.
But your guests do.
Yeah.
Your guests do.
Yes.
So it sometimes takes an outsider to wander in and say, I love that, I love that, I love that. I think we need a little work right here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to go.
Yeah.
Pick that one up. Well, fortunately, you gave us a lot of images that we can work with tonight. And I thought it would be really cool to start off with a couple examples of my favorite before and after.
Yes.
So we're going to pull up an image here of property. We'll just call it property B.
Okay.
So let's look at B1.
Yes.
This is
These are dear
a
friends.
before.
They had just never done anything to their backyard. And it was a very sloped property. And as it happens, the kids and grandkids are coming to live there for at least a year. So they needed a backyard, and this was not giving them much.
All right. Now there's another before picture also of this same property.
You can
So this
see
is all
again
part of that back.
how it slopes. And there was an old garage that we were able to tear down, and there was just a cement patio there. So given this, what were we going to work with to find them places to be? You want places that you can enjoy your yard.
Sure.
This is your connection to nature. So you don't want to just have an empty slate. You want to have places where you can go out and enjoy your property.
So we have a couple after pictures.
Yes.
So let's look at one of those after pictures.
So we used an awful lot of stone and raised the
nice.
yard and put a hammock in the back corner. And then you can see that garage patio has a stone wall on the back side of it to keep people from falling off, because there is a
very
slope there,
good.
but it became a seating wall. And then the other picture, you can see it from the other side, the other point of view. You can see
look at that.
we actually it was the homeowner's idea to put a dogwood right behind the slope. So it's nice, it's a lowered dogwood behind that wall, and there's a water fountain and a little statue. And then over on the far patio, you can see we had to put up a fence to sort of hide the property next door, but it gave a sense of enclosure to the place. And there's a fire pit. So there's all sorts of ways now to enjoy this yard.
What a dramatic difference.
This was one of my most severe before and afters. And this took more money than my usual job, where people just need a little tweaking.
Yeah. But that yard, not only had it not been cared for as a yard, but to have children there, it
Needed
could
to
be
safe.
dangerous.
Yes,
Yeah.
it needed much more work to be safe and
All right.
enjoyable.
Well, we have another another set of before and after, and this one is
this is more your typical situation where I'd come in as a consultant first, perhaps take a look at it. This is your typical builder's landscape. Too many Alberta spruces.
Oh, Deborah, too many little. Tell you, I look at that and I think that doesn't look bad at all. I mean, it's
a
kind
little blah.
It is a little
really
blah. Yeah.
So. Yes, we can keep some of that stuff. We can move it to different places in the yard. But if you take a look at the next picture,
let's
you'll
see the after. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
You just fill it in. You don't need a lot of empty mulch. You need color, and you need a lot of space to be able to have spring, summer, fall, and winter interest there. So that's where you throw in some perennials, some other. They had plenty of evergreens. They needed some color. They needed some softening. Everything was too stiff before.
Now that I see the difference, because hearing it is one thing, but seeing the picture is totally different. That's beautiful.
Sure.
Because I know that I know a number of people in Connecticut and family elsewhere who are really going to appreciate this show. I wanted to talk about some samples, some examples of where help is needed.
Yes.
So I have this one here I pulled up, the ones you gave me, called Backyard Mistake.
Yeah, and I have to admit, that's my backyard, and it's my mistake. I dug out this huge garden area just as I started my design business. So it was empty. So over the years, when I've had leftovers or I've wanted to trial plants, I've filled it in. But you should never cut off more garden than you can chew. It's so much easier to mow a yard than to weed a yard. So the problem here is it's not edged, it's not weeded, and it's not mulched. I mean, to mulch my 1 acre takes a lot of money. So it's easier if you don't put in a bed unless you can mulch at least every other year and put a nice clean edge. And the best thing, if you're going to have a party, even without adding a plant, the best thing you can do is go around and edge it. Clean that front edge of a bed. That makes the thing look so much better.
So when I look at this picture, though, the mistake is not the plantings, because I'm thinking it looks beautiful. It was the fact that it was almost like too much to
It's too much
maintain.
for me. Yeah. Especially, how if you have a great hobby, if you turn your hobby into your business, it's the last thing you want to do is go back out and take care of your yard at the end of the day.
Of course. Isn't that, yes, I do know. I do. All right, we have another one of these pictures where help is needed, and this was one of my favorites and familiar.
Yes,
the
junipers eat the house.
Oh, yes.
See, this is why you sometimes need an outside eye to come in and take a look, because I guess the builders threw this in. I'm sure they were small junipers at the time. That's a weeping maple, deciduous Japanese maple, and barberry. All of those are not one of them should have been in that foundation. And where's the front door now?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is one where you just have to take a chainsaw to it. None of those plants should ever have been there.
Oh, what a shame.
But so many of us just, this is an extreme example, but we do let things get too big.
This I have to mention. I live in a condominium, and with board permission, we can put in little gardens. So I sketched out what I wanted for this garden area around the deck. So let's say that this is the deck, and I have this little garden area around here. And right here in the corner, I wanted this pretty little spruce.
Yeah.
So I went to a nursery, and I explained to the man that, I needed something that's not going to get very big because of the nature of the neighborhood. He said, this is a dwarf spruce, and it won't get any taller than just a little bit about your deck level. I said, that's perfect. Well, let me tell you, it is twice the height now. I mean, it's big.
Well, a lot of people who work in nurseries don't necessarily understand everything that they're spouting.
Yeah.
But when it comes to conifers, dwarf refers to the rate of growth. A miniature conifer only grows 1 to 3 inches a year. A dwarf, 3 to 6 inches a year. You're there 10 years, it can grow 60 inches,
And it did, and then some. Yeah.
One of the great things is you can go on, house tours, garden tours. And I went to an estate that was 20 years old, and those things that I think of as small plants were humongous. I mean, they were huge. So you either have to maintain them in a certain shape and size, or just move it somewhere else when it's gotten too big. But that other house, way too late.
Yeah,
Way too
for
late
sure,
for that.
For sure.
Yes.
All right, we have another picture. Too busy. This one.
That too is my backyard.
I love that.
I know. But if you plant a lot of perennials, I'm now leaning a lot more toward all the wonderful, colorful shrubs that we're putting in our gardens.
Yeah.
But if you do add a lot of perennials, you're adding a lot of work. Yes, it's a lot of color. I now put in larger groupings of perennials so they have a bigger impact from a distance. Because unless you're walking around your garden all the time, you're not going to notice one of this and one of that.
Yeah.
You're gonna need 3 or 6 of something. So yes, those will still be the pink.
Love
are
them.
doing their thing right now. Yes, and later on the hydrangeas that are back there will pop. The Japanese maples, big. It's not terribly busy, but it's a little busy.
You know, but now this leads me to something though. When we're talking about design, and I think of that as an artistic expression, and when it comes to art, some of it is. I mean, I realize that there are standards or accepted standards
Yes,
of what
it's all
things should be.
subjective though.
But it
Bottom
is
line,
subjective.
yep. And it's your garden. And if my client wants one of these, I'll explain that might work if it's where you sit right outside your door and it's right there. But if you mostly see it from a distance, it's all going to become mush. So, but if it's your garden and that's what you want, that's what you
Yeah.
get, as long as you can find someone to take care of all of
Because
that
I really like
chaos.
your garden.
Well, I need to hire a gardener. That's my problem.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we have another one, a size mistake. Now, this
Yes.
is interesting, and I think we take a look at that next one, size mistake.
I can't tell you how many people have bought this cute golden hinoki type of plant. This is Chamaecyparis cripsi. It's a Crips golden hinoki. And it's adorable. And I gotta say, I myself bought one at a reputable nursery, and the label said perfect for the miniature garden. Well, it's now 30 feet high. This is a tree. This wants to be a tree 30 by 15, and it's planted by the mailbox.
You're kidding.
No, and like I told you about the conifers, it's a
Yeah.
large one. It grows 6 to 12 inches a year, or more than 12 inches a year. So that's going to be way out of size
be
for that
a
mailbox
problem.
in just 2 years. You have to read the labels. I ran into a couple at a nursery. They said, "Do you work here?" I said, "No, but I can help." And they were going to buy these huge paniculata hydrangeas for outside their patio, 4 foot. And I said, no, they hadn't even opened it to read what the size of the plant was going to be. You can't just look at and we've all done it. I planted a rose of Sharon right on the corner of my house when I first started. Those become big shrubs.
Yeah.
So we just have to make sure we know what we're buying when we buy it, or we waste a lot of money.
And I think, too, it seems obvious you'd want to buy something that is appropriate for where you live. So here we are in New England. I would think that any nurseries here would only sell something that is appropriate for this area. Is that correct?
Right. Well, you can find, it depends on if your nursery is like splitting a temperature zone. Perhaps you live on a mountaintop and it might be a little cooler than somebody else. I mean, there are microclimates, and maybe they'll sell a zone 7 plant. A lot of them sell the purple Pennisetum, the rubrum pennisetum with the dark leaves.
Yes.
Well, that's an annual here.
Oh.
Most of the time, that is not coming back. But it's almost the price of an annual. So if you want to enjoy it for the whole summer, that's
Yeah, go
great.
ahead.
But just don't bank on it coming back.
Well, and then, and I love the seed catalogs. February comes, and it's like I start dreaming of spring because all those catalogs are coming in. So now you're talking, well, if I'm buying from a catalog,
you
do
really have to
pay
watch
attention.
that zone. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Though our zone's getting a little higher as we
Isn't
speak.
it, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sure is. We're going to be the tropics here pretty soon, tropical
Right.
Connecticut. We have another one of these pictures of a challenge,
Okay.
an overgrown foundation.
Yes. Now this is manageable. That other one, remember with the huge junipers, I said you took a
Yeah.
chainsaw to it. This is a client, older couple down the street from me, and we have managed this. We've just slowly cut it back, so it's now, the windows are visible. It's not crowding over the walk. A lot of our problems can be pruned and maintained. You don't always have to start over. There are a
that's
lot
good
of
to
things you
know.
can save, because these are wonderful azaleas, rhododendron, pyrus that are beautiful plants. They just needed to be pruned properly.
Okay. All right. Well, that's encouraging. I like hearing
Well,
about
we have
that.
so many older homes here in Connecticut.
Yes.
People who've lived here for 20 years. They don't always have to start from scratch. Maybe they'll want to, but there's usually a gem or two you really don't want to get rid of.
Yeah.
Yep. You can add a pop here and pop there and just make it a little bit more special.
And I think sometimes because there's such sentimental
Yeah.
value to something.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I had, my daughter planted that tree, they remember
that
those
kind
things.
of thing.
Yep.
Well, let me just mention for anyone who if you just happen to be watching the show now, if you're just joining us, this is Full Bloom. I'm Zita Christian, and my guest is Deborah Kent. And the familiar face is because she used to be on WFSB Channel 3, and she has now turned a passion of hers, the gardening, into a whole landscaping design. And your work is just simply phenomenal.
Thank you.
It occurs to me, I have a sister down in Virginia who has become a master gardener, and she specializes in fruit trees and vegetables. So tell me about how you learned to do what you do.
Well, through the almost 20 years at Channel 3, my garden was my escape. Weekends, 10, 12 hours a day, I was in my garden for that solitude and connection with nature, and had tons of books and would go to lectures with the Connecticut Horticultural Society, which is the most amazing organization in the state. Anybody can go to their lectures and hear nationally known people. I mean, the man who wrote the book on dogwoods talks about dogwoods. So I'd attended those over the years, but once I wasn't at Channel 3 anymore, I was able to go through the Master Gardening Program, which is pretty intense.
Yes.
And I also got organic land care training through the Northeast Organic Farmers Association, NOFA Farmers Association. So that got me grounded in a lot of plant knowledge.
And also pesticides, use of pesticides, I would think.
I don't touch pesticides.
I was going to say, because that is a hot topic.
You have to be
now.
certified to handle pesticides on anybody else's property. So don't think, if somebody's coming over to spray something, make sure that they are certified, because you need to know exactly what you're doing so that they don't make a huge error that either hurts your property or hurts all the animals, the bugs and whatever in the environment. So I haven't gotten my certification, and I don't think I'm going to.
Okay. Yeah.
Somebody else can handle that.
I understand.
Yep.
So here we are, New England. I grew up in Virginia, and I remember when I was in high school, Sister Mary Matthews said, if you ever go to New England, you will never want to come back to Virginia. And I remember thinking, oh, what a sacrilegious statement. I mean, all of us in Virginia, this was our home.
Yeah.
But as things worked out, I did move to New England.
Well, I went to UVA.
Oh,
and
okay.
I find a lot of similarities
There
in the
are
landscape
similarities, yes.
between the two.
But
Yeah.
seasonally,
Yes.
the seasons in New England, oh my gosh,
Winter is
dramatic
long.
changes
Yeah.
and long, long winter.
Yeah.
But there is a difference. I mean, I see a distinctive 4 seasons in Connecticut. So how does that affect what you plan?
So many people, most do-it-yourselfers, they are so excited to go out in the spring. So they go to the nursery centers as soon as it's warm enough, and they go out and buy and buy and buy. And maybe a little later in the year, they'll go out and buy and buy and buy. By August, I've had enough.
You've been in my house. I know you've been in my conversations. That's it exactly.
Oh, I mean, we all feel that way. August, we're ready for the cold almost. If you're a gardener, you're just ready for things to slow down. So as a result, we often understock our own landscapes for fall and winter. Winter's our longest season.
Yeah.
If we don't have conifers and other evergreens and things with berries or interesting bark, what are we going to look at all winter long? So you have to make sure, as a designer, I often find I need to pump up their fall and winter interest, because they've often taken care of. Spring is easy.
Yes,
we all love
easy.
spring.
Yeah.
There's so many bulbs. Spring is always beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the middle of summer to winter that you really need to focus on.
Yeah, and I never even thought, I really just never even considered that there were options.
Well, you can buy all those plants usually at a nursery, but often people usually buy things only if they're in bloom. So if you're only buying from a nursery and you're not talking to a professional, you don't think to grab that aster, which is nothing but a little bit of green.
Yeah.
So they usually stock the fall bloomers about this time of year, in the middle of in the late summer. So if you go back to the nursery, you're not going to find those plants.
There's a lot of planning that goes into this.
Yes, there is.
This
There
is not
is.
happenstance.
No.
So we do have a couple pictures that
Okay.
show a difference
Yes.
in seasons, and I believe this is a driveway of somebody you
Yes.
know.
Yes,
So
this is my sloping driveway.
Yes.
I wish I'd given you the winter view. That winter of 2 years ago.
Yes,
everything
easily.
was buried. You know,
Wow.
usually you'd see that deep, rich green. That's a hinoki there. That was buried in snow.
Wow.
My truck. You know, it was just insane. But this is late summer. You can see the sedum blooming, the asters are blooming. So this is late summer. My driveway entrance, which when I first bought the property was nothing but lollipopped yews.
Wow.
So
Oh,
I
my.
changed it a lot.
You did.
But the next
Beautiful.
picture shows.
Yeah, let's look at the driveway in the
That's
fall.
just 2 months later. Grasses are so great here in New England. Yes, they can be crushed by a heavy, wet snow, but many of them will bounce back.
Now, you didn't like pull out other plants. You didn't pull out what was there.
No, when I put this all in, I planned for the 4 seasons. But, you took out a hedge, lollipopped yews. You had
Right. No,
plenty
but I
of
mean-
space to work with. But you have to, and that tree is one of my favorites. It's
it's
Stewartia
gorgeous.
pseudocamellia. It's a wonderful tree.
I look good in that color. So do
Do
you. I
you?
can tell you. You get that. Yeah, this is a good
But
color
you can
for
see
us.
how, New England does it for us a lot. Fall
Yes.
can be pretty easy with the natural maples and all the other color, but we
Yeah.
can do it we can pump it up in our own landscapes too.
I like that idea. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that if somebody wants to use your services, or maybe they don't even know if they need the services, but they're starting from scratch. It's like, okay, here's the blank slate. I don't know what to do. How do you help them? What do you do? What's the process?
Well, a lot of other businesses would do this too. You start with a consultation. Now, I charge for mine because I'm going to give you a ton of information. But before we even meet, I send you a 2-sheet landscape assessment to fill out.
Okay.
So that I know, when do you have parties? What time of the year? Do you always bring people to the house? Then we'd want to pump up that season.
Oh.
Where do you put the garbage cans? How do you plow? What are your favorite colors? Are there plants you grew up with as a child you'd like to add?
Deborah, I had no idea. The
Oh.
things you think about.
Oh, you've got to think about, people who go away for the summer, why would I put tons of July flowers in their yard if they're not there? Because they go to the shore. I don't happen to be able to do that, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
They go away for a month or so. So I avoid plants for that season. But you get their color preferences, any allergies. So all of this, they have to sit down and think about before I even show up, so that we're ready to roll as soon as I walk in. And then you walk around and you say, okay, what are you pleased with? What aren't you pleased with? I often, because you've lived with a place for so long, you just don't see the flaws.
Yeah.
And you need someone else to point them out.
Fresh
or you
eyes.
say, take a picture of this, and print it out and go look at it. And if you were someone walking up to your house, is that what you really want your front entry to look like? So,
Moment of truth.
yes. So often all they need is the consultation. They're do-it-yourselfers. And I might say, okay, you might want to get 3 geranium roseanne, a little repetition right along your front border. They bloom from June to October. Can't go wrong, unless you have chipmunks. They love them. But so that may be all we need.
But if it isn't, then you work a design for them.
Yep.
Then do you do the actual, do you come in with a shovel and work?
If they need me to put in the plants, sure.
But if they want to do it themselves, they can.
I just give them the design and I give them the list of plants and they can go to it. I could bring them the plants if they don't want to. It depends on how much time you have.
Yeah.
I work a lot with mostly women of the house who want to plant with me and learn how to plant. I love coaching. It's like being the consumer reporter.
Yes.
My old days, teaching.
Yes.
So I can even come and give you 6 coaching lessons throughout the season to tell you how to prune things or when to deadhead, that kind of thing. But if they need me to install it, they just want to go away and have it done when they come back, we can do that too.
And gloves
Most
will
landscaping
travel.
companies can do that, yes.
Have spade will dig. Okay, well,
Yes.
I want to look at some pictures now about when it all comes together.
Yes.
Because
Okay.
this was really cool. So we
Alrighty.
have the first one, this bunch of perennials.
Yes. This was another neighbor who had this V-shaped garden. It's between the 2 driveways on my street.
Oh.
And the rear had a big shrub border, but there was nothing down front. So all I did was come up with maybe 7 different varieties of perennials. And she's got color from spring into the winter there. See, this is what I mean about not being too busy.
Yeah.
You know, the difference
I
between
see the
this
difference.
and my garden.
But I still like yours. I do.
But this has a little bit more symmetry. It has a little bit more punch, especially close to the road for a drive-by garden.
Oh,
it's
sure.
nice to have it a little bit more simple
Good
as
point.
you're cruising by. I did the medians on Route 17 in Glastonbury, the South median with those knockout roses.
Yes.
And you need to have masses when you're speeding by.
Yes.
You know, you can. So
Otherwise you'll
same
miss
thing
it.
on your personal front yard driveway.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
We have another one, and this one talking about massing.
Yes, this is an example of massing. I didn't design. This was a landscape architect, Stephanie Fuss, who came up with this. This is a property that I have added some plants to and I maintain. But you know how so many of us have burning bush in our yard?
Yes.
This is the best replacement you could ever have. This is Itea virginiana. It's Itea. And it's beautiful fall color. For 3-4 weeks you've got that red, and it's got white flowers in June, and then you've got this massive low blue rug juniper.
Beautiful.
And it's just, see how much calmer it feels?
It does.
It's just a sense of, believe me, she's got the 60 roses elsewhere.
Okay.
But this is just nice as you're driving by, and it's of course knitted together more now.
All right. How about we have another one that you have a balance of mass
Yes.
and
this is
perennials.
as you reach the top of my driveway, see that's my little house with the roses over the door. I have a little cape in South Glastonbury, and I have a string of the same kind of rose at the top and geranium roseanne underneath it. And then there are some larger groups of perennials as you come up, but it's not little here, it's larger masses, but still giving you color and variety.
It occurs to me that, because I know some people who've newlyweds bought a home, it occurs to me that someone who is starting out, giving them a consultation would be a nice gift. Do people ever do that?
Yes. Sometimes at the holidays, I get a husband calling saying, my wife loves to garden, but she really doesn't know quite what to do. Can you just come early can I give her a gift of a consultation?
I love
and
that.
next spring you can come out and help her do things, or coaching lessons.
And what about the people who, like I think about for my husband, for Dick, and for me, the retired. I mean, we're retired now, and we have this little garden that really is, sometimes it feels way too big. But I would think that someone might want to look at like how to downsize without turning it all to grass.
How to simplify it a little bit, make it lower maintenance.
Yes.
Again, so many wonderful, colorful shrubs that can now take the place of some of the the perennials that would eat the garden up if you let them go.
I have one final picture I want to show, and that's this one at Buckingham Park.
Yes.
And that's in Glastonbury. I know I drive by it lots of times, the Buckingham Park one. And we'll pop that up here in just a minute.
There we go.
There we go.
That's the nonprofit Glastonbury Partners in Planting.
Okay.
I've been working with them ever since its inception, and
All
so
right.
if anybody wants to help, we do parks throughout the town.
volunteers.
Yes,
That
we
sounds
love our
great.
volunteers and donors.
Deborah, I have to say I'm so thrilled that you came on, because to me you have fulfilled a dream of many, and that is to turn a passion into a profession. And I'm going to close by just giving you the wish that my South Dakota grandfather used to always give. He was a farmer, and he would say, "May every seed you plant grow twice." And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
I also want to thank you and the viewing audience for being here on the show. And I love to close by saying thank you for joining us, and I appreciate the fact that you spent another evening with me. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Is brought to you in part by the following: